So, the D21. What the hell would you use this for? This is a perfect camera for accompanying an Alexa as a B cam on a shoot, or if you need an A cam and you don't want to spend 40 grand on an Alexa. This particular one has a few modifications to it to make it a lot more livable. Everything from a custom out to a D-tap female so that you can power all of your stuff. It's also regulated 12 volts, so right now we have it set up so that it's going to a D-tap splitter, which is then powering our Odyssey, which we can use to record in DPX or ProRes 444. So what the hell is this little thing? This is a monitor that we fabbed up, which is used to control all individual aspects of camera control. It's kind of your menu monitor. We also made it so that it's fed through a D-tap, so you don't have to power it in any way except directly through the camera. And we also set it up so that it goes straight back into the rear of the camera. So if you need to access your menu items by pressing down on the button, you can. To change your white balance, your frame rate, your outputs, your ISO, all of your fun stuff, your color matrix. Also, this little monitor, as you can tell, can give you zebras, it can give you frame lines as you set them, and then it gives you your histogram, or nothing. I usually just leave it right there. It attaches via one of the two airy rosettes that's in the back of the camera, right here or on the other side, so that you can place it on either side of the camera. So this particular D21 has a heated viewfinder, high, off, and low, which I've never used because I don't use heated viewfinders. Because this is a film style camera and this is your eyepiece, you will have to open and close your eyepiece if you move your eye away from the viewfinder. Pretty basic stuff. So the D20 and D21 were Arri's first digital cinema cameras, and to make them they pretty much took the front half of like an Arri 435 and then put the original Alexa sensor inside and turned the entire back of the camera into a massive heatsink. One of the advantages to the fact that they did that was that they already knew how to make a mirror shutter work properly. They already had all the controls for the mirror shutter. All they had to do was put a digital sensor behind and figure out the data later. One of the cool things about this camera is the mirror shutter is actually a mirror shutter. You have no rolling shutter whatsoever. Motion looks amazing. It's essentially why the Alexa Studio is the Alexa Studio. When the camera's running, the camera's running. That also means if you've ever used any film camera ever, that you just pick this thing up and you change nothing. You already know how to use all the menu items, you know how to think in terms of frames per second, you already know how to think in terms of shutter angle. And of course, it takes a second for it to get up to speed, so get used to saying speed again, for real. So considering you can get a 1080 picture or Arri RAW using the proper recorder out of this camera, and the fact that they're pretty inexpensive, why the hell isn't everybody using these? Well, it's for two reasons. First is power. This thing can only take at least 24 volts at maximum 35 volts. So this thing's made for a VLCX, but there are ways around that. Right now we're getting power as Arri originally intended. We've taken a 24 volt power supply meant for an Alexa, modified it so that it comes out to a 3-pin XLR, and then taken that 3-pin XLR and made a custom cable to the 2-pin Fisher on the camera itself. So you can set this up in a studio, no problem. But what happens when you're not in a studio? We've come up with a couple ideas. The first is this included dual channel Anton Bauer battery pack that's meant to power a sky panel. which allows you to take a couple ABs and essentially have a VCLX that you can take wherever you want to, that you never have to worry about reselling, and you're good to go. The good thing about this little guy is that it actually does voltage conversion, so even though we're using two 14-volt batteries right now in order to power it, if you have to hot swap, you can do so. Badass. Our next option is if you actually wanted to shoulder mount this thing, which can be done, and which I have done a number of times, which is a modified Anton Bauer battery pack with two AB slots on it that's been modified to have a 3-pin XLR on the top. So you can again take a couple ABs, and voila, you've got something now that you can walk around with, around your belt. Also, the test function still works. Doesn't tell you anything, but it lets you know that you still have juice. Cool. When these originally came out, they were used by studios as a studio camera. So studio power, studio moving it around, and also studio recording, like to array with fiber. So things have changed since then. We have SSDs now, so you can use a Convergent Design Gemini, you can use an Odyssey, whatever you want. You can even get an S2 recorder and record area raw out of the box, or you can get a Codex M, which are now like $1,000 a pop with 5 drives. We just happen to have this Odyssey around from other productions, so this is what we use. But pop in a couple SSDs and you can shoot with this thing all day. Right now we're at 1080, 444. One last thing of note for anyone who's interested, yes, going through the menu, changing the user mode, the white balance, the frame rate, everything works. You can go above 250 or log. It's all fine. And finally, camera status, happy. And everything's A-OK with the most recent firmware you can get for this 10-year-old camera. Cool. Bye-bye.